But first of all, thanks for making some time to speak to me today, Christine. I'm super excited to hear your insights on, what's working, what might not be working for job seekers today, but also any insights you have for other career development professionals, things you've seen sort of change over the years, things you think might affect the future of the way job seekers approach looking for new jobs, trying to stand out. But before we get into any of that, I always like to ask, what has your career journey been like? How did you get into the role you're in today? And are there any highlights along the way that you can share with us?
hmm so I'm the General Manager of Employment Services here at the YMCA of Hamilton, Burlington, Brantford. And had the pleasure actually of working at two YMCA outfits. The first one in my early career was at the YMCA Peel Employment Service in Mississauga. And I actually began there out of high school looking to go into social work and help people. So I did a co-op placement there and then went on to college and then university. And 32 years later, I'm still here helping job seekers the way that I received help from the YMCA back in 1992. I was not sure of my career path. I didn't know, I was always told that university was for people not like me, and I was really encouraged and um, inspired by what I was seeing at the YMCA and the help that they were providing to move on into my career and do things. So luckily, I was able to move up through the employment service. I started out, like I said, as a co-op placement, did reception, did some resource and information where I was helping people self-directed just come into the resource center, and then moved through employment counseling to job developing, program coordination, program management, and now as a general manager overseeing the managers that direct the employment sites. And interestingly enough, I still am able to maintain frontline support of our clients. In fact, it's still my favorite job. Even though
Wow.
I'm a manager, I oversee clients whenever I get the chance to meet our job seekers in person and help with their journey. It really inspires me to continue doing and make me feel like this is the right decision for me. There's our work is not easy, but it is rewarding. And I think that has kept me in the profession and leading those in the profession for as many years as I have been doing. So, yeah, it's definitely something I look forward to.
That is amazing, Christine, and that's why I always ask that question, because it's so interesting to hear what people's background is and what brings them into the space they're in now. Um, that's unbelievable that you used this service once upon a time and have now seen a way to contribute and give back to uh, people who are looking for similar support. And I thought it was interesting how you mentioned early on there was that perception that university might not be for you. And I think a lot of people feel that way and feel like, oh, that's not for me, or that career path's, you know, out of reach. But what was it that, someone might have said to you, or what did you end up um, going through that made you feel like, no, you know what, you can do things the way you want to do them?
I think it was, to be honest, the when I couldn't believe in myself, someone at the YMCA, an employment coach, believed in me and made me think like, that's not true at all. You can do anything you put your mind to, and make sure, as long as you stay committed and stay focused and move around your barriers, don't let them stop you. And I think today, even now, I always tell clients, don't panic, plan, right? So if your first expectation isn't met for whatever reason, think of alternatives and how are you going to get to your goal. And it may take longer than you think, it might, you might have more ups and downs while you're going through it, but every aspect of your job search, your job career, your experience adds to your character and adds to your portfolio. And it's not necessarily a waste. It's just a different journey to get to where you need to be. So for me, that's what I always make sure when I have the opportunity to meet with job seekers, I let them know that. And just because you're in an upset right now, that's not going to be, it doesn't have to be the end of the line. You can keep moving forward. And plans were made to be changed and move around as well. So just stay flexible and live your best life based on what you're given at the time.
That is super helpful insight there, Christina. And I think it's like you mentioned, this isn't an easy job, but I'm so glad that people do it because it's so meaningful and it can make such a dramatic difference in people's lives. Just having someone who does believe in you. So I'm so glad that, you had someone who believed in you and that you're able to offer that to people now. Because I think job seekers come with so many different stories, of why or where they are in their journey. Um, so that work is extremely important, and it's rare that I get to speak to someone with as much experience as yourself. So I'm curious, how has career development changed, over the time that you've been
Hmm.
part of this field? Are things done differently now than you might have seen at the beginning of your career?
Yeah, interestingly enough, like I remember doing job search workshops or employability skills workshops. We used to call they were 3-day workshops, which really got you prepared to enter the job market. We talked about employment standards, we talked about interests and how to look at your transferable skills, and we talked about how to connect with employers that might use those skills, the different ways to do it. Like we talked about pounding the pavement and going door to door, dropping off your resume, have like 50 copies of your resume, and don't come home until your 50 copies are gone. Right. And then even when you went for an interview, sometimes the interview was you and the boss in the parking lot having a smoke and, talking about why you'd be good for the job or when can you start and that sort of thing. We would talk about make sure you were well groomed, make sure you, knew what your skills were, and it's interesting how things have evolved because, in some degree, some of the stuff is still very relevant in the sense of knowing your skills, knowing how you can target those skills. And basically, what I tell job seekers is, employers picture it like this: employers are going to go to the store and they have something in their mind, they want to buy an orange, right? So they walk into the store, they may walk by the bananas, the apples, the peaches, the potatoes, the milk, the meat. But essentially they're looking for an orange. And if you go into the store and you see all these things and you're that's not interested, but this orange, what you're looking for is shining bright and looks very ready to eat, easy to peel. It has the just a right amount of juiciness and plumpness. Like that's what the employer's after. And what sometimes happens with job seekers is they try and put themselves in the employer's face or in their view, but they don't talk about how they make a good orange. They might say, I'm a banana or I'm a peach or I don't have anything that's relevant to you. And then they sit back and wonder why the employer doesn't buy them, doesn't purchase them. And so in today's market, we what has changed a lot is that employers used to appreciate those in-person meetings. So you could go drop up an office and pound the payment. Now you're in competition with AI, and I think you know a lot about that. There's no you walking into the store with your shiny, thing looking at. You have to promote yourself way different. You can't get in front of the employer. You gotta march in a line with 50 other people that might have applied for the job. You first got to get by the AI, the techniques, the computer techniques, to get yourself to float to the top of the list. And if job seekers are not used to that, or if they don't know how to use the tools at their disposal, We've had countless job seekers say I've sent out 100, 200, 300 resumes and not get one single response. And it's so demeaning for them because they think I know if I could just get myself in front of employer, I'd be able to sell them that orange that they're looking for, but I can't even get in front of them. What we've tried to do now, and again with the in-stage help and using again the tools to our advantage without replacing the contact, like the person-to-person contact, because that's still important.
Absolutely.
It's just if you can't get yourself in front of the person because you're competing against 50 other resumes that were submitted before yours, you're at a disadvantage. So we're using those tools, and I think that's what's changed in this job search landscape, in the sense that there is more AI, there is more opportunity for job seekers to present themselves at a higher level, which is great. But then it leaves others, like I said, at a disadvantage when they could have convinced employers in person if they had the opportunity. And this is becoming, I guess, on the side of the employer's lens. As an employer at the YMCA, I hire people constantly or often, not constantly, often, and I can tell someone's resume that's AI generated, and it makes me think, is this your work? Is this really who you are? Because then they sit in front of me and they can't speak to the resume.
Yes.
So it has its benefits, but then it also has its complexities. And we have to, as career development specialists, um, be able to explain that, help them overcome those issues, and be in it to understand what the current labor market is about. Again, 30 years ago, you would go to a job and likely you would stay there 10, 15, 20, sometimes 30 years. Now it's common because of just the way things have changed for job seekers to jump every 2 years or contracts, or they leave they get the experience and then they go. So again, in my opinion, the job market has changed substantially, and where our job is to help navigate those changes with our job seekers in order to create the best possible opportunity that we can with them using the tools, throwing back to what used to work, still making sure they have strong networks and strong interview skills and strong appeal to what an employer is looking for, especially when things are so competitive as they are.
That is an invaluable set of insights as well, Christine. And again, coming from someone who's really seen this industry and the job market evolve, it's something I think people will really appreciate hearing, because I do think it comes down to just awareness, right? Just recognition that things have changed. Believe it or not, I was at a shoe store just about a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago, and I saw someone come in with a paper resume and go to the front desk and drop it off. And I thought it was incredibly brave. And I actually told him, I was like, wow, like good for you. That's the effort I think it takes. But at the same time, it goes back to what you're saying. Even that paper resume at this point is probably going to go through a scanner and join the rest of the resumes that are going to be analyzed by an AI or an ATS system. And if people don't know that, you can have this beautiful, literally flashy resume with colors and pictures and get scanned out because, well, that system, it can't read a resume in that format. And I can
Mhm.
completely understand why people would get discouraged, because you've put in the effort and you're not sure. It feels like you're doing something or that your skills aren't valued, but it's your orange example right there. It's just knowing how to present yourself. So I'm really grateful that you've touched on some of these points, just so that again people start to become aware of them. And I think it's another great reason to reach out to services like the YMCA and to, the employment service providers in your area. I think tools, and I'm grateful that you mentioned InStage, are valuable, especially if they're used with, an expert to kind of talk you through it and guide you. Um, but I think that people, again, just need to be aware of these services. So the kind of next question I had for you is, in your opinion, what's the biggest misconception about career development that you've come across, in your time? Is there something that you think should be done differently, or something that you think stops people from using career development services, or any misconceptions in general that you can think of?
Interesting that you should ask that because I recently had someone pin me in a corner almost and asked me that question myself. He said, I can find out how to do an interview online. I can go to YouTube and watch 20 million videos on how to do an interview or how to submit my resume or, all this stuff. Why should I come to you?
Mm.
And I said, when you talk to someone, do you like someone to talk back to you? And he's like, huh? And I said, job searching can be very overwhelming and discouraging, especially if you've sent out, like, you think you're doing everything right. You are submitting your resume, you're doing the online interviews, you're practicing, you're scripting, you're doing whatever you need to do. But at the end of the day, people are still human. All of these tools exist. And an employer will still send you an automated message saying, sorry, we went with another candidate.
Yeah,
And receiving that message over and over and over again can be somewhat depressing. It's not great for your self-esteem because
agreed.
uh, especially if it takes a long while to move back into employment, or if you've been out of the job market for a few years. COVID did a real number on many jobs, and getting back into the job search arena can, like I said, is overwhelming for some people, especially when they face that rejection. So working with us at a service like Employment Ontario or whatever, I told him, I said, we're here to walk with you. I said, I can't guarantee you're going to get a job by tomorrow. Absolutely not, because I'm not the person making the decision. It's
Yeah,
the employer that makes the decision. But what I can commit to you is that whether you're having good days or bad days, I can be your sounding board. I can give you feedback. I can give you suggestions that an employer would not. Right? So I'm going to be straight up with you. I'm going to inspire you as much as I can. I'm going to give you some feedback when you got a rejection letter 30 seconds after you sent in your resume. I'm going to tell you what might be working, what might not be working, and I'm going to celebrate with you when you do land that job that you're interested in. It works out for you. So if that's the kind of support we say we don't find you a job. We provide feedback, guidance, and support to help you through the difficult times of job searching. And when I mention that to some people, it's normal for them to take a step back and think, do I really need this? Right? And most people, I'd say, not everyone. I'm not going to pretend that everyone appreciates that service, but more often they do. And so, in the case of what I can provide is some feedback and maybe a quicker return to the labor market because you have that guidance instead of just doing it on your own and sort of wallowing when things don't go your way.
yeah, it's so well said, Christine, and I couldn't agree more. Someone asked me this morning, why are you doing this podcast? And this is the reason. I want people to recognize that there are people out there who can support you as you go through that journey. And like you said, maybe it's not for everyone, but for the people who are getting discouraged and are confused and are asking questions and looking for answers, there is this entire, you know, group of people with so much expertise and knowledge that can help you. So if you're watching this episode, I mean, reach out. There are tons of these services um, in your community, and YMCA is one of these, um, you know, long-standing institutions that is there for support. So I think it just makes it a lot of sense, Christine, just that, you know, someone to walk alongside you as you go through that process and cheer you on, and give you feedback. Because, like you said, how many times do you get an automated message? Thank you for applying. We went another way, with no insight on what you can do differently. So I think it's an invaluable service, and one that I'm glad we can clear some misconceptions up around. Um, Next kind of question here is, again, kind of with how fast things are changing. And it's interesting that you mentioned you yourself still help frontline, like you still work on the front line. That's amazing. I don't know how you have time for that, but um, I'd anyone getting a chance to work with you is extremely lucky. But does your advice change based on the generations in the workforce? Do you adapt that advice to different generations that might be, you know, trying to re-enter the workforce, having worked, in a career for 20 years and are now trying to adapt to AI versus a new grad who's just entering for the first time?
Absolutely. And the reason for that being is because they all have their own toolbox of what they've used and what has worked for them in the past versus what hasn't. So for those that are experienced, the experienced generation that have been in the workforce for long periods of time and now finding themselves in transition, it's about saying, okay, so how did you get your leads in the past and what worked for you? We're not going to abandon that altogether. Absolutely not, because a lot of it was who they knew, how, like their neighbors, their colleagues, their friends, or whatever. So we still want to monopolize and capitalize on those skills that they used. It's beneficial to them. But likewise, what they need to do is add aspects into their job such that they're not currently doing, right? So we always practice, looking at all of the options. Don't put all your eggs in one basket and make sure that you're using all strategies to help you get back to the labor market. The online job search, we talk about the Indeed pitfalls. It's so easy to apply. People will just hit apply, and what it does is take up space for those that really have qualifications. We talk about LinkedIn and the networking, and sometimes, when you stalk someone on LinkedIn, they get kind of creeped out about it, and
True.
they're very hesitant to even answer or respond, depending on what generation they're from, right? So we
True.
like to with that, whatever the generation is or the experience or how they've touched the labor market in the past, we show them the other side, right? So we want them to have a broad view and perspective on all of the things that they need to put into their job search activities in order to be successful. And sometimes I had a job seeker that I was working with, and he's like, Christine, I don't know. Like, I've applied for 200 jobs. I've had 5 interviews. I'm not getting anything. Like, this is hard work, and I'm losing speed, right? My determination.
Mm.
And I basically, like, he showed me he was doing everything. Like, I couldn't offer him any suggestion. And I finally, at the end of our conversation one day, I looked at him straight in the eye and I said, it's not you. It's definitely not you. You're doing everything that you should be doing. This isn't right now. The job that you're trying to get into is a matter of numbers. The more people you apply to, the more that you try and promote your orange to someone who's looking for oranges, the
Yeah.
better you're going to prepare. And it might, to be honest, I said it might take 500 contacts and 21 interviews before you find someone that fits what they're looking for and you fit what they're looking for. So let's just keep moving forward and dealing with things as they come. And again, it was that assurance that no, you're not doing anything wrong. It's
Yeah.
just the labor market that we're in, right? And we just need to keep at it and keep moving.
Which again it just points to how invaluable using these supports can be, because I
Mm-hmm.
can just imagine someone going through that on their own, sending off the 200th resume and getting the 200th rejection and going, I am doing something wrong. It would be completely understandable to change your approach when, in fact, in that case, because they're working with someone like yourself who can recognize that the right things are being done, can guide them to just be patient. Um, which, I have no doubt will eventually get them to the right place, but it would be
Mm-hmm.
so difficult to figure that out on your own. So I just again applaud this group of, like, the work you do, Christine, just because
Mm-hmm.
of the sense of direction you can help provide people. Um,
And sometimes we tell job seekers, like, depending on what level of stress or, engagement they're at, we can say, okay, so we understand you're looking at your forever job. If things are getting desperate, let's look at your for now job.
yeah, yeah,
Because while you're working, they say you're more marketable. And if we can get you in something that maybe not quite matched to your job goal, but it's going to lead there, or you're going to make contacts, or you're going to get income so that you're not so stressed. And then always have an eye on what the final goal is. And I think that alleviates some of the stress and pressure. That it's okay to take the for now job,
Yeah.
in search of the forever job that people are looking for. And even when I say forever, forever might mean 2 years, right?
Yeah.
It's just something to break that negative cycle for them, to bring back a little bit of esteem and make sure that they're able to progress and move forward.
100%. And to consider it a win. Many times I hear job seekers talk about taking a survival job and they have this sense of defeat about them that, this isn't the field they want to be in, but it's a total victory, if it's something you're doing along the way, which again,
Mm-hmm.
I think comes back to just the way you framed it. So, I think that's a completely normal thing to consider, as you try to find that forever job, like you said, because even that can be daunting to think of what do you want to do forever, and it's like it's just what's
Yeah.
inspiring, what gets you excited for now. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's a great distinction to help people with as well, because it can be really confusing to think about what you want to do indefinitely, but not so much, what
And I
you
think
about. Yeah,
gone are the days where people do I think I'm a dinosaur. I don't think many people stay in their jobs for 32 years anymore, right? Like the generation is very mobile in the sense of job sustainment and what the skills that they're trying to learn, and even income movement, right?
yeah,
Now with people at certain employers, they usually give 2 to 3%. If you want a real income jump, then you got to go to a new company and get a $5,000 to $10,000 change. So and that's not wrong. It's just an aspect of the new labor market, right? And how people need to understand that, and always be up to date on. We always counsel clients to make sure that they self-manage their career. So always make sure your resume is updated. Always make sure your skills are updated, and know what's in the labor market. Don't take it for granted that the job will be there all the time. It might not, but you are ready regardless of what the situation brings.
that's such a good point, and something that's so much easier to do while you're in the job, to continuously do that maintenance. Easier said than done, I'm sure, because it's not the kind of work that I think people want to do while they're employed, but
Hmm.
invaluable. If you do make the time to do it, you will thank yourself later for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and I know I only have 2 more minutes of your time here, Christine, so, I'm trying to decide between 2 fun questions I had for you, but maybe this one's,
Hmm.
I'll save one of them for hopefully the next time you join us. But this one is just, there are so many new trends in the workplace that are being talked about, and one is this idea of the 4-day work week. Do you have any thoughts on whether you think that would be a good thing, or whether you think that might have some unexpected consequences, just as a fun sort of, final sort of thought for us
Hmm.
today?
I think they incorporated this in one of the provinces, and I don't know which one. They were trying it out. And in my opinion, knowing what we know about the COVID work remote situation, and how productivity works or doesn't work depending on your position and what's going to happen, I feel like that as long as the 4-day work week does not impact your ability to get your job done
Mm,
or the company's ability to maintain productivity, economic relevance. Sure, anything can be managed. We found that out through COVID.
that's so
uh,
true. Yeah,
when
and it
things become challenging is, especially at the Y or other workplaces that we're aware of, they have the hybrid, so the benefit of collaboration, the benefit of work from home, the mental health benefits of not having to commute, especially if it's a long commute. And then even, giving credibility to someone who needs to be in the office, but they also appreciate their at home full focus concentration time
yeah.
to be able to get tasks or projects completed. So, in short, I think anything can be managed. We figured that out through COVID. It's just how it's up to the employee and the employer to make sure that the objectives are being met that needs are being met and that productivity is still happening in a relevant way to be able to service clients. Like in our business, to be honest, we couldn't go full day remote because our clients want to see us in person.
Mhm.
And you can't meet clients like virtual
True.
all the time, right? So it needs to be planned, it needs to be staged, and it needs to be managed so that you're providing the best possible outcomes for both three parties in our case, the employee, the employer, and our clients.
Well, super well put, Christine. And I think it's great how you said, it also, you think of something like hybrid, it doesn't have to be one way or the other. I have a friend that over the summers they have 4-day work weeks. It doesn't, it needs to be adapted to fit the three, in this case, parties involved. So I just want to thank you for the time today. It was extremely enlightening to speak to you, and I'm so glad I had the chance to learn from your experiences. I think people who watch this episode will take a tremendous amount away. And if you do have 2 more seconds for those who might be
Sure.
interested in the YMCA and learning more about the programs you offer, what is the best way to go about
So we
seeking
have
help?
our website, Y to work. So the letter Y, T-O work.ca. And then you could learn more about our employment services, how to book an appointment in one of our 4 locations between Hamilton, Burlington, and Oakville for employment services specifically. And so that's probably the best way. An email can be sent, you can book online, you can ask questions. So I think that's probably the easiest way right now for people to connect with us here at the Y.
Perfect. We'll make sure to link that in the comments so it's easier for people to find. And thank you again, Christina. It was fantastic speaking to you.
Thank you so much for giving the opportunity. My pleasure.
All right. We will talk to you again soon.